In today's video, we're talking about ankle mobility and ankle pain. Now, we're going to be coming at this from the perspective of Egoscue's book, Pain Free, the revised and updated second edition. So, what exercises are we going to be talking about for ankle pain and mobility? Well, this menu is on page 79 of the book, and there are 8 exercises that we're going to talk about today. The first is standing arm circles. Second, sitting hill raises with block. The third, abduction and adduction with narrow and wide feet. The fourth, static wall. Fifth, static extension. Sixth, cross crawling. And finally, foot circles and point flexes in the supine position. I'll also talk briefly about a modification you can do to make this easier in the static back position with the same exercise. Now, if you need full instructions for any of these exercises, there will be links to videos I've done for each exercise individually in the description below, and as many as they'll let me put in the cards above. Now, the first exercise is standing arm circles. Standing arm circles is a deceptively difficult exercise to be done properly. But what we're really doing here is decreasing compensations and dysfunctions between the ankles and the shoulders. That sounds like a great place to start when we're trying to improve ankle mobility, right? And this is really going to help get your ankles working as a good foundation to make sure that your shoulders aren't having to do the work of balancing the upper body. Second, we've got sitting heel raises with block. Now, sitting heel raises are mostly going to be strengthening those hip flexors. But the secondary purpose of this of this exercise is to get your hips, knees, and ankles all working in conjunction. That block between the knees, that makes sure that both the hip flexors work under even demand and that one isn't allowed to do more work than the other. Abduction and adduction with the feet narrow and the feet wide. Well, this exercise is really focusing on improving the rotation in the femurs. If your femurs are stuck in external rotation or stuck in internal rotation, well, there's going to be a problem here because that is going to mean that the ankles are being subjected to improper loading because the hips are either too tight or out of balance in some way. So we're really making sure that we're building better balance in the hips, and this gives the ankles a better chance of not having to strike on the inside of or deal with strikes on the inside edge of the foot or on the outside edge of the foot while trying to walk normally. The fourth exercise is static wall. Static wall is a passive stretch, and as you can see, it is great for stretching out those muscles along the back of the in your butt and in your lower back and in your hamstrings, of course. But the real work being done is engaging the muscles along the front side of the body, in the pelvis, in the hips, and in the thighs. And this is really going to help to get your quads turned back on, doing the job they're supposed to be doing, instead of letting the hips or the glutes do their work for them. Cats and dogs is what we often use in postural therapy to propagate changes from the hips up through the spine all the way to the skull. And in this case, we have just done a lot of work with the femurs in abduction and adduction, and then we did a lot of work in the hips and pelvis and thighs with static wall. So cats and dogs is helping to propagate those changes, just like a sine wave or an actual wave of water propagates changes forward. Static extension is a great exercise to do after cats and dogs because it is great for bringing the spine into a better balance. And this is great for reducing things like scoliosis or other types of rotation in the spine. And it's really focused on restoring that natural S-curve of the spine. We're almost done. The next exercise is cross crawling. Cross crawling may look fairly simple, but most people are going to have a really difficult time when they first start out, keeping that lower leg parallel to the ground throughout the entire exercise. And it can also be fairly difficult at first to time this exercise so that the arm completes its movement in sync with the opposite leg's movement. We're really working on this, this cross pattern of gait that we have when we're walking, and trying to get the hips and the shoulders and the spine to all work together to make sure that cross that cross pattern movement happens in the proper order and with the same effect on both sides. Finally, we got foot circles and point flexes. This exercise is also one of those deceptively difficult ones. If you're first starting out and you have problems in the ankle, it might be really difficult to keep that lower limb, again, parallel to the floor throughout the entire exercise. You're going to be doing rotations of the ankle, both clockwise, counterclockwise, and then just flexion, going from dorsiflexion to plantar flexion between those two. Now you got to be really careful when you're doing this exercise to not go too fast. People get impatient and they want to start spinning that ankle really quickly. It should be a full 2 seconds between for every revolution or plantar to dorsiflexion action. And that is going to be a difficult thing. If this exercise really causes a lot of burning and you're having difficulty keeping that leg up, you might want to check out my video on doing these in the static back position instead. That's a great place to start for beginners if this supine position, lying flat on the back, is too difficult for you.